I adore both of you, but I need to know from both of you. I'm going to ask each of you a question because I'm such a fan of both of you guys. But Naveen, you're best known for your dramatic work. So it's really refreshing to see you do more comedy. What drew you to this role, and how does it feel to portray a sweet, goofy DILF?
um, to answer your question, I'd never done anything like this before, as you probably inferred. This particular form, this particular discipline, yeah, this is the first time I've done what might be termed loosely as a sitcom. And what else that attracted me to this part was the fact that I've never played anyone with such genuine optimism. He's relentlessly optimistic, and for some reason, he has no rancor or bitterness, and it was almost like a template for how to live, like a code of living, in some way. Someone who genuinely has strength, but is very calm, and is very easy in terms of how he expresses that.
And the DILF part too, of course. But and Ethan, I've been a fan of you for a long time, following your comedy career. And Jimbo is a gentle giant. Both of them are both the fathers are just gentle people. But there's also mystery around the good guy. The good guy is always hiding something. What can you tell me about Jimbo? Because this is also a mystery in a way.
Yeah, I was so excited to play a dad. It is by leaps and bounds. Dad, I would rank the identities that really make me feel like me are top dad, and next is husband. And so getting to play that, because it's been I think I've maybe had one other job where I was a dad, and it was a very small part in a movie, and otherwise it's just not been in the cards for me to do that. So it was exciting for me to play that. And as far as the mystery, I think what you see is what you get with Jimbo. You know what I mean? He wears his heart on his sleeve, and so anything that you are perceiving while watching him, you're likely to get a version of that. You know what I mean? I know there is some stuff alluded to, and Jimbo and Mahesh out shooting bows and arrows was one of the most fun days of work I had. But even in that, he's like genuinely a novice and excited to be out there with somebody who's an expert.
Well, you guys have great chemistry. The chemistry between you two, you play off each other so well. They're both nice family men. Despite the cultural differences, they're both just nice dudes. And I honestly could watch the two characters just do a dad comedy together and just sit around and drink beers and hang out. Can you tell me the dynamic between them? Because they're supposed to there's a hate and love, but then it's also you can't tell because they're just so great.
Well, something that came out of it, they're almost like children.
Yeah.
Because they genuinely like each other, but it's never overstated. They don't have to describe it. It's just genuine. I'll use the word gently attraction.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's exactly it.
I mean, the bromance is really, really there. So I really am obsessed with that relationship, and I hope to see more for them. But also, the series is a comedy, but it's also shrouded in mystery. That was so interesting when you first, when you're watching it, and then it develops into more. It's not a spoiler because they mention it in a way, but when you first read the script, what were your first thoughts? Because this isn't just a family comedy. Were you told the entire mystery? What were your thoughts when you first read this? Because it's more than just a comedy.
Oh, I thought Rashomon is what I thought. The Kurosawa film with all the different versions from each character's point of view. But that's what came up for me.
Yeah, no, yeah, I just remember after the second script I called Vigil, and I was like, okay, dude, I'm not, just tell me right now what happens. I can't do this. I'm stressed out. I want to know everything. And he went through and was like, got me through the first season and talked to me about the second season and talked to me, and it's a mystery wrapped in a riddle that just keeps kind of going. So it's wild the way his mind put this together is pretty awesome.
Well, I what I love about this series is that you think it's a wholesome thing where it's like, they're coming from India and it's like refreshing, like, oh, we're fresh. And then Jimbo and his family are just like nice Christian family. But then you hear there's sex, there's cursing, there's like just so much. And like I just never imagined to hear Naveen Andrews say vagina as a line. So I need to know what your favorite lines are because that was my favorite line. Like what was, and this is not a spoiler. You just say a line and it could be out of context. But when you said, "I want to build rockets in space, not rockets in vaginas," that was my favorite line ever because it's just funny. Like it's just hilarious to hear that from an Indian father. And so, what were the lines for you guys that really just hit? Like, and it could be out of context. Just your favorite line.
Well, Ethan came up with a line which he improvised, if I'm remembering this correctly, Ethan. Um, when we were shooting bows and arrows, and I seem to remember it was something about I'm feeling the I'm
Yes, I remember that. What was it? I don't know how to make it because it clearly wasn't X-rated because this is not an X-rated show. So
Yeah.
it was a very tame, but it was there was it was something about our passion, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's just an Indian wholesome family, and then there's little quips of like funny moments where I'm just like, I never expected this. When you signed up for this, when you saw this, you were like, what was your thoughts about just seeing the hilarity of it and seeing this kind of break a stereotype of what we perceive a Christian family and an Indian family, you know?
well, it's something that we touched on earlier. Like when you said there's so many different things, there's like the good Christian family, there's the good this, and or it's like it touches on darker themes like bigotry,
Mhm.
but I've never heard it expressed in such a delightful way.
And then with both of you, what can we expect from like were you told the entire mystery and the solution throughout the like or were you told in each script what the mystery, like each mystery, or did he tell you the overall thing for this story?
An overall thing.
I wanted to know immediately. I like cornered Bijo and was like, you have to tell me right now. I'm not doing this where I wait because it takes a while to shoot these things. So I was like, I'm not waiting 3 months to find out what's going on here. Tell me. And he told me. I I have a hard time. Now that we have all this technology, if I get too stressed out watching a movie, I just skip ahead to the end.
Well, I want to thank you guys, and I'm so happy to see this portrayal of like a Christian dad and Indian dad, and just have more depth to them, in a way because like I was raised by so many different like Asian and Christian families, so it's really great to see this like dynamics between the two. So and DILFs, it's great to see more DILFs. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate talking to you and congratulations on the series.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you guys are so adorable. I love the dynamic between Sudha and Manu because it's so relatable. And I'm not just saying this as a cultural, like Asian thing, it's just in general of dealing with rebelling, boys, and then the cultural expectations, you know? Was there a moment between the characters, like, or even in general of the characters, that you found relatable?
The dynamic or more so the character?
Well, the dynamic and the characters, because like there's so many things like the relationship between the mom and then also yourself, like the character.
Yeah, well, I found the dynamic of like, my mom in the show, now that I'm like not in Banu's place anymore, I understand where she's coming from. Um, she's not, yes, she's being like a strict parent, but it's not coming out of nowhere. Like it feels reasonable and more so like wanting the best for her daughter and like knowing that even when Banu's older, she's going to regret some of those decisions. It's not coming out of like judgment, you know? And so I feel like that's how I was raised too with my parents. Even at the time, I was like, I think I can tell they're right, but I don't want that. I don't want to, I don't want them to tell me. Like, I want to just find out for myself. And so Banu kind of gets into these crazy situations and kind of learns for herself what
Yeah.
mom has always been saying. So that, and of course, also the, immigrant parent not understanding how confusing it is for you to be growing up in America was relatable too, you know?
And then for
Yeah.
me,
I mean, I think all parents, and I say all parents, and now I realize it's all parents from broadly Asian culture. If you take Asia to include India and the subcontinent and all of the rest of Asia, we we are raised to believe parents know more, know better, know different, and that they know, and what they know is right. And so why my father used to say, why do you want to reinvent the wheel when I know how the wheel is made? Like, here's a wheel. Why are you reinventing it? So that was so real in the script constantly. And it was very normal for me. I'm like, of course Sudha is going to be like that. What is this kid doing?
Yeah.
But it's very Western, this idea that let kids make their own mistakes. We don't want kids to make mistakes because that wastes time. We want them to use that extra time to get A's, to get great jobs. What's the
mhm.
problem? Like, I cannot even still understand why this is so difficult for people to understand. But in the West, like, let them make their own mistakes. There's all this choice in the West. Let the kids choose what they want. I was not raised like that. And Sudha certainly is more liberal in some ways because, she's not raising the most strict Indian family, but some of the stuff Bhanu wants to do. So that's like, what are you thinking? And I found that really normal the whole time. I was like, yeah, I'm on Sudha's side the whole time, the entire time.
And related to that, I think that that's exactly why Bhanu likes being in America because, Bhanu feels that you can now kind of do whatever you want. It's a fresh start and I can just be a different person here, which is obviously what Sudha doesn't like.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
oh, good.
And kudos to the writers that they were able to represent Bhanu as a teen in this day and age in India. Teens in India are not that different from teens outside India. They all want to do what they want. And now in India, you can get away with it. When I was a teen, there was no chance. You couldn't look at your mother and answer her back. Now, teens are doing all kinds of stuff. So that is rarely seen on Western television. This
Yeah.
idea of kids being just straight-laced the whole time, it's not true anymore. And I was so happy to see that in the script because the way Sudha is trying to deal with Bhanu is how a lot of Indian moms in India are trying to deal with their wayward, I say that with a lot of love, teenage daughters.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I love about the script too, because not only because when you first see the series, you think, oh, this is a wholesome thing. This is going to be refreshing. But there's sex, there's cursing, like there's like dirty talk and all this stuff, and like and it's so different from what you expect. And the series is a comedy, but it's also a dark comedy shrouded in mystery. Like when you first read the script, what were your first thoughts? Because it's not what you're thinking. Oh, it's Pradeep's coming to Pittsburgh, but no, it's to Pradeep's coming to Pittsburgh kind of feel.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, go for it.
No, you go first.
Okay. Um, it's very reflective of like the immigrant experience. It's like it's a lot darker than we make it seem, but I think in order to assimilate, we're like everything's awesome here and I'm happy to be here, and that's so not the reality of it. So, and also related to the thing about the drugs and sex and whatever, I think like I think growing up, my parents thought I was the only Desi person, brown person doing those kinds of things as a teen or as a even as a young adult when like some of my friends were doing way worse things and like you just had no idea because it was like, well, Rajesh has the best grades or whatever. It's like, no, you actually have no, yeah, and Rajesh is selling coke, you have no idea. So I think it's important to have that kind of representation on screen, especially for like people like my parents to be like, oh, okay, so that's normal. That happens.
Yeah, very much so. And when you look at the adults, like Sudha, you know, she swears in Hindi. And that's not, this idea of like on so many shows about Indian families, the parents are like these really straight-laced people who've never had a drink, I'm like, who are they? Maybe my grandparents' time, but not anymore. So when she swears and when she's quite upfront with, about certain things with her spouse or with her children, I thought, yes, thank God, I recognize her. And I think a lot of Desis, people from the subcontinent, will recognize in Sudha who they are today. Not, that there has been a tendency to always have the background of an Indian family show. It's like, oh yeah, we know that. We know that. We know what that looks like. No, now you don't. Because these people are very Indian, at least the parents and the kids, they're Indian in their own way. The parents' dynamic with them is very Indian, and yet they're in the West, and there's so many things about them that are Western. But that's how it is. It's not so black and white, Well, hey,
No,
no pun.
no, and it's interesting a series because were you told the entire mystery and the solution, or did they keep you guys guessing with the filming of each episode?
I didn't know at the beginning.
Yeah.
I didn't have it when I booked the show, when I did the sides, when I did all the cast. I didn't know. And then we did see the scripts. And I don't want to give anything away, but let me just leave it here. We saw the scripts, but that didn't mean we knew everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Yeah,
leave it.
I
Right,
agree.
Sana? That's fair, right?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Okay, last question. Because there's so many great one-liners, there's so many great zingers like that I was just obsessed with. My favorite was out of context. And you could tell me what your favorite is out of context because no one has to know. But my favorite was like, I want to build a rocket ship for space, not vaginas. That was my favorite line ever. Because so please tell me what your out of context favorite line.
Do you have one, Sana?
I immediately thought of me saying, we can do whatever we want. They have Megan the Stallion here, and you say, well, I'm Sudha the mummy. And I think that's like that's so classic brown mom to say, like combining random words and be like, well, I'm this. And you're like, what are you saying? You know? Thought that was funny.
That one. But on the one that you mentioned about, I wanted to build, rockets for space and not vaginas. And I say, and anuses too.
Yeah.
You said visionary. I
Right,
love that.
like the whole
I get that, I thought it was very funny. I'm not sure if I would give something away by saying the line that I like the best. So I'm going to keep it to
No,
myself.
of course. But
Any of these are great as well.
well, the anuses did tell me that how cool of a mom she is, though, because
yeah.
whole
She's a
spectrum.
doctor. She's a doctor, so she's not got like weirdness. She's like, it's a biological thing. And also she's cool. She's not traditional closed-minded.
Mhm.
She's modern day Indian mothers still think they're right and their daughters should listen to them.
And can I just say, I get the same vibe from Sindhu. Like, she was like my not my mom is also very cool. Shout out to my mom, Kritika Srinivasan. But Sindhu was also like in that same way, just like so cool. All the references you were making were like, I didn't know you do that meme, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. We do have to
All right,
wrap
thank
this.
you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
guys so much. I have been following your work for years, Blackish, The Middle, The Kids Are All Right. I had thought the Pradeeps of Pittsburgh would follow the same vein. And in a way it does. But the series starts differently than what I expected from the beginning to the end. It made it be the first mystery comedy series with an Asian family at the forefront. What were the decisions behind this? Like, how did you come up with this concept?
Thank you. I am very proud of this concept. And I'm, first of all, so grateful that you were surprised, right? That you were surprised. You have seen this genre. I've worked in my favorite shows that I've worked on are my favorite shows. I felt so blessed to do it. And when I was given the shot to tell this story, I'm like, I want to do it, but I want to do it in a different way. So, and I'll tell you what the origin was. I loved every character in the show. And I'm like, I want every character to be able to tell this story. How do we do that? Well, maybe this Rashomon style storytelling where they're all doing it. I also want them to tell it in a way that's not always accurate, because to me, that's just funny and that's real. Okay, how do we do that? Why would somebody not accurately tell a story? I'm like, because they're in trouble. I thought back to when I was a kid, how I would embellish stories. I'm like, no, because they're in trouble. And that's where, and then it landed as this, oh, it's a mystery. Great. And that was it. It almost like, lightning in a bottle. It just crystallized. And then we just, it all flowed from there. The overall story, the narrative I had, but the storytelling was the big add that made it feel more premium, made it feel Amazon, made it feel streaming, made it feel, this new type of storytelling.
Well, it was really unexpected. There's so many things that I was thinking. I'm like, oh, I know your work, and like I felt like, oh, it's a family show. But then when you just get in there, I'm like, oh my God, it's just so much more. Did you get some mystery pointers from Lost veteran Naveen Andrews as well, like from this? Because this was like, whoa.
I drew from shows like that. I drew from shows that I loved, like Lost. I drew from True Detective. I drew from these stories of characters that are really being tested, because that's how it felt, growing up as an immigrant family. We were being tested by everything, and there was a new surprise at every turn that we could not have predicted. So how do we imbue that into the storytelling, not just for the characters, but for the audience? It's almost
Yeah.
putting them in that seat. And Lost is a really good example of that. And I think that's why Naveen came to the show wanting to do this show. We didn't go to him. He came to us in the best way because he loved it. He got the script and he's like, I love this. I love the character. And it appeals to him as a storyteller that he's able to be a part of a story that takes a fresh way of telling a comedy.
Hmm. Well, what is your overall concept or goal for the series? Because do you imagine it stretching further, more into a mystery each time, each level, like as you go on, or eventually evolving it into a grounded family show?
I feel that this storytelling lets us continue telling this story and pulling back more and more layers, right? Like we're not sure, like, oh, okay, so this is happening, but is this happening? Is this all that's happening? So it'll keep it. I have a whole many seasons of this show that there's just more unfolding. And it's because that's what life is like, right? That's what a family is like. All of a sudden, there's this new aspect in your family, or there's this new, you're moving to America. There's all these surprises in your life. And so I want to keep the storytelling that way too. And to your point, the humor and the heart is all grounded in reality. It's just the way we package it, the way we give it, the way we present it is the fun of it. There's a whole new level of fun that we could laugh with and be like, I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, like but I also love though because I felt like I was like tricked in a way where the Pradeeps, like there's such a whole like happy Indian family, and of course the daughter's rebelling, and then the Christian family neighbors. I'm like thinking, oh, this is very like I understand what you're going, but they curse. There's drugs, there's sex, there's like commentary, like Indian dad says vagina. Like it was one of those things where I'm just like, wow, like I love the darkness to this as well. When you were developing this, how did you kind of add that lighthearted comedy, but also the darkness and this mystery all together at once? Like, how did you structure this?
One of the things that we wanted to do is portray parents and immigrants as modern, and this is one of the things that one of the actors said to me, Sindhu V. She goes, this woman, the Sudha that she plays, she goes, she feels like a modern Indian mom. She doesn't feel like an Indian mom from even like 15 years ago that would be more like, oh my, she's seen the internet, she's seen YouTube, she knows what TikTok is. Mahesh has there's everything that experience. So modern immigrants aren't the same immigrants that we used to see of like, what is America? What is that? So we started writing them just as a family, and then, as an Indian family, and then as a real family. So we were okay with cursing. And because our Amazon partners like, great, do it. That's what they say. So what feels like a little bit of darkness, I like to frame it as reality. You
Yeah.
know, that's the thing. It's not sanitized of anything. And it's surprising, like you said, when Indian dad saying vagina, but he says it almost in a clinical way, instead of like a sexual way, which is like
Yeah. It's
So,
a wholesome though. It's still wholesome, but yeah.
exactly, a wholesome way of he's just like adding facts, which is how my dad would say. It's like he would say it factually.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you noticed those layers, because we really worked to, like I said, make this show with the Rashomon style storytelling, with the deep ensemble of characters and the unique perspective, to make it a show that has something for everyone. And I mean that. Like this, everybody can watch this show. Sometimes you'll have to be like, ooh, in the best way. But it bends, it doesn't break. We want to push the envelope to bring people in.
Well, thank you so much. I can't wait for everyone to watch this, because my mind was blown, like, as I was continuing on. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. So thank you so much for this. It's just exciting to watch.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much. Tell
All right.
everyone.
In the lectures, fanboys, professional artists, and professors. Maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite you to the NOC. In full color, you see me. The hard knock life, comics, movies, and TV. Yeah, pop culture with a different perspective. Watch it on your screen, hit play, so check this.